Good morning. Happy Monday. It's the 5th of November. Earl, News Now Rapist, made a video about forums. I congratulate him. I don't know that just telling people to Google it is really the way to go. Educating yourself doesn't seem to work very well in this particular community. People don't generally know how to read it, what the tests are, how to find them. But hey, it's a step. It's definitely a step. Speaking of the tests, a question was asked, or an observation was raised in Discord yesterday. There's a lawsuit going on between a videographer, Amblin, and DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit. And DART stated that it's a public area and you have the right to film. And somebody in my Discord was very concerned that auditors would hear that and they'd be like, oh, this means I get to do it, and all that fun stuff. And it does, actually. That's exactly what it means. If they don't have a policy against it, then you get to do it. That it was a public area goes more towards people don't have an expectation of privacy in there. And they really don't. And I mean, think about any time you've ever been on mass transit. There's people all around you. You don't have an expectation of privacy. You're not there to talk about personal things or intimate details or anything like that. You are there for the sole purpose of riding the train, and it's no different than being on a bus on the street or standing at a bus corner on the street. You don't have an expectation of privacy there. It's different than, like, if you go into a police station lobby to make a report about somebody. Oh, well, they could take you into the back. They can, but they're not generally going to do that until you've told them a little bit about it. And so there can be an expectation of privacy in a police station lobby because of the nature of what you're talking about. Just like there can be an expectation of privacy in a social security agency lobby because of the sensitive nature of what they're dealing with, etc. But on a DART platform or whatever, there is no real expectation of privacy. There's no need to disclose sensitive details. And the question you'd have to ask yourself is, well, first of all, the U.S. law, in the U.S., law is generally prohibitive, which means you could do something until a law says you can't. And by law, I'm talking about policies, ordinances, statutes, court orders, etc. But generally speaking, you could do things until there's something that says you can't. So in the absence of a policy or law or rule or statute or ordinance or court order, in the absence of one of those saying that you can't film on DART property, it means you can. Congratulations. Now, would they be able to change it and create some sort of a policy that says you can't film there? Maybe. You'd have to do the test, the forum test, first of all, to figure out what kind of a forum it is. I think we'll all figure out pretty quickly that Adderley looks like it works, and they get to preserve the property for the purpose to which it's intended. And so then we look at the tests that were developed for non-public forums like Greer v. Spock, and we'll see that it has to be reasonable. Whatever policy it is has to be reasonable and viewpoint neutral. That's it. It doesn't have to be the most reasonable. It doesn't have to be the least restrictive alternative. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit. It just has to be reasonable. Now, that's a pretty easy bar for the government to hurdle. Generally speaking, the government wins that analysis. But it doesn't always win that analysis, because you have to ask yourself, is it reasonable to prevent filming? And I think you'd have to look at the Lee versus the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where the court said that it was unreasonable to stop the Krishnas from handing out literature in the airport for free. They can't solicit. That was unreasonable. But they can just hand out pamphlets. That's reasonable. And the government, their rationale was that, litter, it's going to create litter. And the court didn't buy that. So using that kind of logic, if you then look at photography or filming in a DART station, I think you can see that for 99.99% of the time, filming isn't going to be an issue. FaceTiming, Snapchatting, taking a selfie with your friends, taking a picture of someone, they get off the bus and they're waving goodbye, you take a picture of them, or whatever. Oh, sorry, baby. She stopped right in front of me. She got a boot to the butt. She's all better now. She's fine. So, that 0.1% of the time where there is somebody who's being an asshole with a camera, maybe they can think of other ways to deal with it, or theoretically, if it's a big enough problem, then they could outlaw, or they could have a policy that restricts photography, just period. If it becomes too much of a problem, a la Mexican Padilla style. But if it doesn't become too much of a problem, then the court's still going to look at it, and they're going to look for it to be reasonable. And I don't think it would be reasonable for them to restrict filming on a DART platform, a DART station, or what have you. So I hope that makes sense. Unlike what Earl thinks, it's a lot more complicated than just Googling it. But I guess if you need to Google it, that's a good step. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great day.